So in order to install NPM, you must have Node.js installed on your machine. Actually, NPM comes with Node.js. If you install Node.js on your machine, you would automatically have NPM. So go to nodejs.org if you don't already have Node.js, and then download it and install it. After you're done installing Node.js, you should now open your terminal or command line prompt on Windows, and if you type node-v, a version should come up. And also if you type npm-v, the same thing. So that's how you make sure you successfully installed Node and NPM. So now we can start installing NPM in our theme. I'm having htdocs folder opened here. I'm gonna browse to my theme folder, this one, and then in the command line or the terminal, I'm gonna type cd, and then on Mac you can drag the folder to get the path. And I think on Windows you can just copy the address bar. And now we should be inside the folder in the command prompt, as you can see, first theme. So to initialize npm inside this folder, we can type npm init, and you'll have to type some information. So package name, we can go to first theme, and version we can leave it 1.0.0 the default, and description not important right now. You can leave these. We can actually edit these later, so I'm gonna just leave the defaults for now. Now if you go to the Visual Studio Code or your text editor, we will have a package.json created, and it will have the information that we just filled. So we can edit this here actually. So now we have npm set up in our folder. Let's now install npm packages. So as we mentioned, we will need Gulp, and this is the official repository for Gulp. And here are the instructions to install it. So if we type npm install Gulp, it will install version 3.9, and we actually need version 4, the latest version. So we're gonna type the this line here, npm install Gulp at next, and let's open the documentation for version 4. And we'll go to the get started section. So first we have to install a Gulp CLI, and this is a command line tool that we will install globally on our machine. It's not just in our folder. So I'm gonna copy this line and paste it here, and the dash global will make sure it's installed on the machine and not just on this folder. So you might get this error here. It's a permission error, and if you get that, just type sudo before the command if you're on Mac. And if you're Windows, you can run the command line as an administrator. So we've successfully installed the Gulp CLI globally now, and we can make sure that it's installed by typing gulp-v. So we have the CLI version 2.0.1. Now let's install Gulp itself in our project folder. So I'm gonna copy this command. Notice here the --save -dev flag, and I'll tell you what will this do in a moment. So we'll copy it in the command line. And after it's done, we can go to the package.json again, and now we will have a new key here, dev dependencies and Gulp. And that's what the --save -dev flag did. If we actually just type in npm install Gulp, we'll not save the Gulp package in the package.json, and this is important. So at this point, we should in the command line, if we type gulp-v inside our folder, we should have two things now: the CLI version, which is the global version of Gulp CLI, and the local version of the Gulp package in our folder. So let's go back now to the Gulp documentation. And after installing, it says we should create a file called gulp file.js. So let's do that. I'm gonna create it from the command line using the touch command. So we now have this Gulp file in our theme. And then we can create our tasks. So let's copy that and paste it. So this code will include the Gulp library from the node modules. When we use the require function and include a library, it will go to the node modules and include that library. Now we're defining a new task, which is default. And then the second argument is a function. So inside this function we should write our task logic. So let's now just type console.log hey, and let's see what we can do. In the terminal we can type gulp now, and this will run the default task. So as you can see, we have hey here. We can create a new task, another task, and let's call it this time hello, and pass the function, and then console.log hello. Now if we type gulp hello, we'll get hello. And we have some sort of an error here. It says the following task did not complete. And the reason is that we should tell Gulp that our task has completed. So you've seen in the code that we've copied, we call a function called done here, which is passed in the task. This is how we tell Gulp that we're done with the task. So if we type done in the arguments of the function and then call it, and then gulp hello, we won't get that error. So one thing you should have noticed here, if we define a task called default, this task will run if we type gulp here without a task name. Alright. One more thing I would like to do here. You probably know that JavaScript has new versions that they release every year. So we now have the ES 2015 and 16 and 17. So we need to be able to use this new syntax in the gulp file. So instead of the require statements here, we can use the ES6 import statements, like so. Import gulp from gulp. And also we can use arrow functions and all the new JavaScript features. But to do that we have to do something first. We can't just do that directly. So let's go back now to the gulp repository. And there's a section here about using latest JavaScript version in the gulp file. So the first thing is that we should rename gulp file to gulpfile.babel.js. So let's do that now. And then we should install these packages. So and this will install a package called Babel, and Babel is responsible for transpiling the new JavaScript versions into older JavaScript versions in order to run for older browsers. So it has some templates or presets that it can transpile. So here we're using ES15, and that is kind of old, so we can update that to a package called babel-preset-env, and that will make sure we are transpiling the latest versions So let's install that. And after that, we should create a new file, .babelrc, and add the preset inside of it. So in our case, we install the env preset. And now we can write ES6 inside the Gulp file. So I'm gonna comment this and then rewrite a task within ES6 syntax. So import Gulp from Gulp. And then to create a task, all you have to do is just to export the function. You don't have to call gulp.task. So export the function, and the function name is the task name, and we can use arrow functions. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I really recommend you can go and read about the new JavaScript versions. So let's now try and run gulp hello, and we get the same result. If we run gulp now, we'll get an error because we have not defined a default function. And to do that in the ES6 syntax, you just have to export a default function. So export default hello, and then run gulp, and it will run the hello function.